Hi, I'm Chuck with In the Ditch. Today we're going to do a step-by-step process to show you how to choose the proper toolbox and storage fender and accessories for your tow truck or your car carrier. And we do outline this in a step-by-step process that can be found online at intheditch.com. On the truck we're going to be using today, it has an In the Ditch SP9000 side puller on it, and we're real excited to take you through this process. So we're going to start out with step one, and that's to select the proper quick mount for your application. When selecting your quick mount, the first measurement that we recommend you get is from the top of your frame rail to the bottom side of your carrier deck or your utility bed. Once we have that dimension, you can enter it in our operations manual, and it's going to walk you step by step through how to choose the correct quick mount for your application. If you have between 4 and 6 inches of gap, as shown here in the diagram, you'd want to choose the ITD 1580 quick mount, and that's designated by the blue icon. If you have between 6 and 8 inches of clearance, we'd suggest that you use the ITD 1588, which is designated by the yellow icon. If you have 8 to 10 inches, you'd go with the 1584 quick mount, designated by the green icon. And if you have 10 to 11 inches, we recommend you use the 1581 quick mount, which is designated by the red. If you want a real custom installation, we suggest you measure and choose your quick mount on your own, or call us and we'll help you. Now that we've moved to step 2, what we want to do is measure the usable space, and that's the space between the rear wheel and the nearest obstruction at the front of the truck. And on this truck, we have 113 inches of usable space. Now we're going to subtract 5 inches for wheel clearance at the rear and 3 inches for clearance at the front of the toolbox. After we've done the math, we have 105 inches of usable clearance left. And what that tells us is that we can use any combination of toolbox, storage fender, or accessory as long as we stay within 105 inches. Now we're going to move to step 3, which is choosing your toolbox. And for this tow truck, we've decided to use the 70-inch toolbox. So we're going to take the 105 inches of usable space, subtract 70 inches, means we now have 35 inches of space left over. We've decided on this particular build, we're going to add a storage fender. So we want to use the biggest storage fender we can, and we know we have 35 inches of usable space. Now remember, at the beginning I'd mentioned that we're using the ITD 1580 quick mount on this that has the blue icon. So when we go to select a storage fender, we want to select from the blues, because them are the storage fenders that were designed to work with that quick mount to give you the best wheel opening look. So we have 35 inches of space, so we're going to move along and we find the ITD 2329 has 34 3/4 inch space. So we're going to go back to our workbook and write that number in, and as you can see, we have a 1/4 inch gap left over, and we don't make any product that's a 1/4 inch long, so that's all we can use. Now if you don't want to use a storage fender, you would just move on to step 5 and work on your accessory, but the process is the same way. Now all the measurements are done, all the product's been ordered and delivered. Now it's time to begin the installation process, and we're going to do that by going to our workbook and starting with step 1 of the toolbox and accessory installation. And as you can see, the very first thing we need to do is install our quick mounts. When it comes to fastening the quick mount, we wanted to make it really easy for you to put holes in the frame. So we accomplished that by giving you 2 options. Option number 1 is if you're going to drill, you can drill using these 2 holes. But should you want to plasma cut your holes, we've created these 2 plasma template holes. And when you put your plasma cutter in there, we've sized the hole so that when your plasma cutter's done, you should be left with a perfect 5/8 hole. It's important to point out when you're deciding where to put your quick mounts that you take a few things into consideration. The first consideration is that you need to put your quick mount where there's no frame rail obstruction. The next consideration is the toolbox. We really want to make sure that you mount your quick mounts within 18 inches of each side of the toolbox. We recommend 2 quick mounts for all toolboxes, and in certain cases we might recommend a 3rd quick mount. If you're in an application where you're going to be packing a lot of chains in your toolboxes, or going over some really rough terrain, it might be wise to mount 3 quick mounts. The 3rd consideration is if you're going to add a storage fender. We insist that you add a 3rd quick mount or a 4th quick mount underneath your storage fender in all applications that do use a storage fender. Now as you can see, we've installed the quick mounts. We've also removed the quick mount fixture. The next step is to install the toolbox and storage fender. And there's two ways you can do that. One of the ways is you can mount the toolbox here and install it, and then mount the storage fender. We found it's a lot faster if we bolt the toolbox to the storage fender on a table before we install it on the mounts. Now we're up to the customizing portion. This is your box. You're the one out there making the living on the side of the road, and you should be able to customize it in any way that you see fit so that it best suits your particular application. You can buy your toolbox from your In the Ditch distributor pre-configured from the factory. We'll install the half shelf or a full shelf or a jack bracket. There's really hundreds of variations that are available to you with an In the Ditch Pro Series toolbox. When it does come down to customizing, if you choose to do it on your own, it's very simple. All you do is pop out these plastic plugs and bolt the shelves in. We've made all of the bolt holes commonized so that if you order your shelf after the fact, you just pop the plug out and easily bolt them in. It's really that simple. Now we've finished customizing the toolbox and installing the storage fender. The very next step is we're going to carry all of this over and install it on the quick mounts. Now we've just set the toolbox and storage fender onto the quick mounts. But before we go much further, I want to point out to notice that we've done a good job of making sure that the quick mount was mounted within 18 inches from the edge of the toolbox. We've also installed one quick mount underneath the storage fender. So the very next thing we're going to do is slide our toolbox back and forth to make sure that we have at least 3 inches of clearance here at the front and 5 inches at the back, which as you can see, we've done that. Now we're going to slide the toolbox and storage fender back up against the quick mount stop tab. And when we slide it up against the tab, what that's done is it's already set the distance from the frame rail to the back of the box. So the box is perfectly in line, it's all lined up, and you don't have to waste time measuring. Now that we've accomplished all of that, we're going to begin the drilling process and bolt the toolbox down to the quick mount. Now we've drilled out all the mounting holes in the toolbox. Now we're going to install the lumber basket. And installing the lumber basket is as simple as removing the plastic plugs in the back of the toolbox and bolting the lumber basket directly to the box. Now we're going to install the box top. And our box tops come in many different sizes, lengths, and different configurations. And you have a choice if you follow along in your workbook on step number 6 on all the different combinations. But for this application, we're going to use a 70-inch box top with dividers. And on the other side, we're going to use the 70-inch box top without dividers, which is perfect for long items such as shovels and broom handles. The final step is organize the storage fender, and you have a lot of choices here. Storage fender is a great place to store floor dry, tire chains, or extra strap. We're going to install an In the Ditch trash can mount, the new In the Ditch trash can. We're also going to install a fuel can mount as well as a fuel can. And that wraps up this section of installing your In the Ditch toolbox. I really want to thank you for spending some time and watching this video on how we install our products. We know you have choices and options as to where you buy your products, and the fact that you're buying In the Ditch products and you're supporting our company just means the world to me and the entire crew at In the Ditch. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, and I'll see you in the ditch.